Hey, Serge.
Hey Anna, what's up?
I think we're just doing a Randocast today.
Oh, that's right. We just actually finished listening to an audiobook of My Side of the Mountain by Jean George. Somebody with two first names for a name.
Jean Craighead George.
Right. Okay. That doesn't make it any better.
So I read this book back in 4th grade. I had to read it for Battle of the Books, but then I got sick and couldn't do the battle. But I do remember a lot, I guess. Suddenly I remembered that I remembered a lot. This is your first time listening to it. I actually wanted you to listen to it because we had to drive home from a ski trip. And
in the Catskill Mountains.
Right, so
Yeah.
I thought this would be a really appropriate book to have you listen to.
Right, exactly, because the book is actually set in the Catskill Mountains, and a large portion of it actually takes place through the winter. And, winter in the Catskills. That's what could be more fun? Skiing and hiking, snowshoeing. It's all in there, except for the skiing.
Well, I wouldn't want to live in a tree that seems to grow.
Yeah.
It got really big. I mean, I don't know how 3 grown men could fit in a tree like that.
Well, it was a big tree, so he said it's a 6-foot diameter.
diameter.
Yeah. So you figure, you could 6-foot diameter. No, pi r squared, right? That's a pretty big surface area of floor that he's got there. A grown man only takes up, a couple square feet.
Some of it was for the stove, and then he had a bedroom, and he wasn't entertaining people in either the stove or the bedroom.
Yeah, I think they were all close quarters, but it's livable.
Yeah.
There's close quarters with quite a few different people throughout this book as they came to visit.
Yeah, what was your overall impression? I know one of the reasons I wanted you to read it was not only the Catskill connection, but because you're such a big outdoors person.
Right. No, this was cool. It was, the book itself realizes that it's kind of referencing Thoreau. And so one of the main characters in the book references the main character. He calls him Thoreau, basically. His real name is Matt.
Sam
Greeby. Something like that.
Matt Spell is the journalist that comes later.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, that's what I was getting confused, yeah.
I mean, it's by no means a survival guide to use. It's very fantastic in many ways.
I mean, okay, so yeah, I was going into, what it's like. So it's like Thoreau. It's also like a couple of YouTube channels we follow.
Adventure Archives.
Yeah.
We watch you guys.
Yeah, shout out to Adventure Archives. Also,
Primitive Tools?
Primitive Technology.
Primitive Technology.
Yeah.
You guys are great.
So at first, and this guy actually does a progression, right? So Sam, at first, he doesn't go into, a lot of primitive technology, and he tries to be, very survivalist. He boils his water in a leaf. He makes his tools, out of wood. He has disposable wooden fish hooks. He doesn't build a permanent shelter for a while. And then as time progresses, he realizes that, you do actually have to start making permanent shelter, and you do have to start using more advanced techniques like pottery and clay type of things.
Yeah, so he goes into the woods with a penknife and a flint and steel.
Yep.
And that's all he goes in with.
Yeah, so he has to manufacture everything else himself.
It's pretty impressive, but the clay pots, or the clay jars, were made by the English guy.
The English teacher.
The English teacher.
Is what you meant, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, but he does end up he's inspired by that, and he realizes that he can actually make a stove.
Right.
His fireplace out of that, and that's actually an episode of Primitive Technology. Is that what we're calling it? I forgot. Honestly, well, maybe we'll put a link in the YouTube episode or something. If we can figure out how to do that. Okay. So yeah, I actually really liked the book. It was nice. It gave us a lot to think about in terms of, the wilderness and the different reasons that people have for going there. And I guess the other thing that this reminds you of nowadays is Into the Wild. It definitely had an Into the Wild vibe to it, except this guy read a lot of books in the library and figured out ahead of time how to smoke and preserve meat. and fish. And so he actually puts away a sufficient store of smoked meats in order to survive the winter. And that's the big failure of the Into the Wild guy. He was not able to do that.
Well, also, also made the decision that he was not going to eat any of the mushrooms that he came across.
That's right.
And that he would only eat the berries and stuff that he already knew about. Exactly. Whereas,
Into the Wild was poisoned.
Yeah.
But even if he wasn't poisoned, like, the thing is, he survived his poisoning, and then he didn't have any food.
Right.
He was too weak after he got through his poisoning. He was too weak to be able to escape from his foodless shelter. So that was the main thing. Like, he would have gotten over that food poisoning. And we digress. Now we're talking about Into the Wild. But basically, this guy was more competent, and it came down to him being very well read and being kind of prepared. Although when he starts off, it turns out he's not actually that well prepared. He ends up meeting helpful people along the way that...
Yeah, his first night, he almost failed had he not seen a cabin and run to it and basically been like, "Mister, can I just please use your fire? I need to cook my fish, and I don't know how to do anything."
He did have fish of his own that he caught.
Yeah, he caught his own fish with the hooks he made himself.
Yeah, and I think that was, that was enough to get the guy to be like, okay, like, I'll teach him how to make a fire, and he can have fun out there. If he came in with no fish and no nothing, the guy probably would have called the cops on him.
This book was written it was published in 1959. It was written before that, and I think it was a different time period, so might not have just caught the cops on him.
Right, yeah.
Hey, phone.
Yeah. Jeez. Anyway, and then the next person he finds helpful is the librarian, of course, and he gets to the town where his family land is supposed to be.
Delhi, New York.
And nobody, of course, knows... about the Greeley farm. The Greeleys haven't lived there in over 100 years. And so he ends up finding some records at the library, and the librarian helps him find those, and she's very helpful, actually, overall.
I had to say my favorite scene in the book was his Halloween party.
Oh, that's right, where he learns that wild animals are wild.
He decides that he wants to have a Halloween party with all his new friends in the forest, which are basically all the animals of the forest.
Mr. Skunk,
2 raccoons.
Yeah. All the birds.
And he falls asleep in the party, and he wakes up to basically the animals trashing his nice little treehouse, eating all his food, and tossing it all over the place. And in his panic, he's trying to shoo them out, and obviously the skunk squirts him with...
skunk stuff. Yeah, basically... We all know, right? If you're into the wilderness and hiking, all the LNT principles and, like, don't leave your food out. This guy does the exact opposite. He, like, spreads like a fucking smorgasbord of all the food that he has out on the ground to attract all the animals. Because, it's Halloween, so you gotta trick or treat.
Well, he definitely got a trick.
That was really... But he learns his lesson, actually. And, the only thing that I think both of us thought he should have done is clobbered one of the raccoons and made a coon hat.
Right?
Yeah, winter was coming.
Because he was complaining about having to have a hat later on.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would have been nice and warm for him. But I think he was kind of like personifying the raccoons a little too much. He liked the fact that they had little hands. It made them seem like kind of human to him, and he probably just didn't want to clobber one. To be honest, we've been watching a lot of YouTube videos about raccoons. Yeah. We're a little bit into the raccoon cake. So it's you can see like how maybe he wanted to keep one as a pet or something. But he actually had a pet falcon, which was...
He became a falconer.
It was a really cool thing. In a lot of these survival books, like, the survival character does not do something that cool, where they basically track down a falcon and he had to, like, rob it from its nest. He almost got knocked off a cliff by the mother. It was pretty intense. But I felt like, this book probably went further than most. You said it reminded you of another book you had read when you were a child, correct? Yeah, I don't remember the name of that book, but it was definitely about, like, a kid surviving in the American wilderness. And you think you know what it might be? Sign of the Beaver. Yeah, so Anna thinks it's Sign of the Beaver, and she might be right. I read the translated version of it, and even if that wasn't the case, I still don't even remember what the translated name of the book was. So, whew. But I remember I really enjoyed it as a kid, and it was basically this kind of stuff. So, yeah, I definitely would have loved this as a kid growing up with it. And I'm sad that I missed it, but found it now.
Yeah, so we listened to the audiobook, but what's interesting that if you actually get the physical copy of the book, there are little illustrations to describe all the tools that he made and all the
willow whistle.
Yeah, the willow whistle.
Actually, if you go on the wiki page for this book, willow whistle is like one of the few photographs they have to, illustrate the page. So that's one of the big takeaways for people. This guy, he gets really lonely up there on his mountain. He's got no one to talk to except for his falcon. The falcon just sort of squeaks back at him, so that's not much of a conversation. So he just sort of plays whistles to himself, and then by the end of the book, he gets to the point where he has like whole conversations inside his head with multiple people. There's some psychological stuff that goes on here. This is like getting into like, the third man effect of the people experience when they go on long expeditions.
Right.
So just even goes into like, how the human mind copes with loneliness and privations of survival. So actually a lot of you could tell a lot went into making this book. It's very complete.
Yeah, she did a really great job.
Yeah. And it leaves you with something to ponder, and a lot of things to ponder. Going into the very simple, the most simple aspect of it, what I think happens is he caves and just goes back to the city with his family. They don't say that in the book.
So spoiler alert, there's 2 sequels to this book.
Aha.
One is The Far Side of the Mountain, and one is Fearless's Mountain or something.
Oh, okay. So I was wrong. They don't go back to the city.
Well, I can't spoil that for you.
I see. So basically, based on what I saw from this character and how he's matured over his year living in the wilderness, much like Thoreau, I think he's grown an appreciation for the wild. And when faced with the ultimatum of either having his gigantic family stay with him on the mountain and spoil the wilderness.
4 sisters, 4 brothers, and the parents.
Yeah, so what I think the right choice for him is to say, listen, we don't belong up here. Let's just go back to the city. You win. I don't want to spoil the wilderness. But based on what I just heard from Anna about the sequels, I guess they don't go back to the city, and they just end up like turning this mountain into a city, so to speak.
That's your assumption based on that.
Yeah.
I'll let people read up on their own.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, sorry for the spoiler, I guess, but hey, if you haven't read this book, you must have been living under some kind of rock or in a tree hollow.
Like you?
like Sam.
Yeah, so we love going to the Catskills. This book was really fun to read.
Yep.
Or listen to.
Sure. And hey, next time we're hiking out there, in the spring or the summer or the fall, whatever season it may happen to be, we're definitely going to look out for some of those different things like the sassafras, adventure archives. Yeah. Well, you know what? Some of these animals we didn't even know lived in the cat. I mean, you've seen some of these, but some of the other ones, like, really? A catbird? I didn't even know what a catbird was. So I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for one of those meows in the trees up there.
I don't remember ever hearing a catbird. There are a lot of birds, but I don't recognize bird songs.
Yeah.
I just remember when we were doing Wittenberg, the birds that made you think you were near the summit.
Oh, the summit birds.
The summit birds.
Yeah, those were like crows or something, right?
No, they were too small.
Yeah, well, we'll figure it out.
Anyways.
Yeah.
So if you guys ever plan on hiking in the Catskills, hit us up.
Sure, yeah. And I'm going to give this book a solid 4. I'm going to give it a 4.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll give it a 4.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
See you guys next time.
Bye-bye.